first time I saw your artwork was actually an issue of X-Men Unlimited. After that, you ended up on the Hulk.
Yes.
And so then it was like, oh, I know this guy. Right? You know, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. But here's the thing, right? You kind of stepped away from comics after a while, right?
Well,
I don't know what the time frame was, but I just kind of stopped seeing your stuff after a while. And I was like, oh, what happened to Liam Sharp?
that's you know, it's weird how things go, and it's nothing to do with anything you've done particularly. It's just, that was quite a painful time. I was really struggling. It was too much too soon for me. I was giving it my best, but it was so hard work. I just was very, very overwhelmed by it all. Which is funny because when you look at it, it's so sort of vascular and macho, and full on and intense. And I suppose I was like, I felt like I was getting. I wasn't sure what my direction was at all, and I was becoming like hired to do a specific kind of thing, and I wasn't sure if that was actually fully me, you know, if it actually represented me at all. But you give it your best, and Peter never liked it. He never liked my art at all, which was quite hard for me to swallow as well. Because I wanted him to, but he just didn't. He didn't like the way I drew the Hulk with a leather jacket, and you know, and ultimately it was like, this is not. It's not going to work out. There was a lot of miscommunication, misunderstandings, and it just went south really, and sadly. But I mean, to be fair, it led into some difficult but also interesting times. So I ended up going and working for Danzig after that on a book called Goth, which is. It's government operation Total Hate was Goth, and it's like, but it led to doing Death Dealer, and Frazetta was a huge hero of mine. But again, the stories were not the most subtle. I'm not really that person. Is what I guess what I'm saying. You know? I should leave the big. Blood and thunder stuff to Simon Bisley, because really in my heart I'm more of a Dave McKean, you know. And it's realizing that I grew up loving that stuff, but that's the thing. It's like, is it you? And I think there's got to be an element of like, for work to really sing, you've got to believe in it, and it's got to actually represent you rather than be almost the opposite of what you are. And I think there's in comics there's an element of wish fulfillment sometimes. So I remember loving Conan when I was a kid because he was everything I wasn't, right? It's like, fight the girls off, you know, stop hanging on my leg, you know. And being utterly fearless and just, you know, crushing the jeweled kingdoms of the world beneath my feet, you know. That was not me, but I just wished sometimes I was like that, you know, so life could seem a little bit less stressful.
Yeah.
You know,
a little more adventurous.
Right, yeah. So you can be enamored by and led into those kinds of territories creatively. And it can take you far too long to go, actually, that's not me though, you know, it's not actually me, and what I am is okay. It's all right to not be. You know, a big macho, badass dude. You can be.
Swinging the sword.
You can be. Yeah. You can. You know, we all get old as well. It's like you can't be that forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, absolutely.
And then I did a Man Thing series with Jam Dramatis that I'm very proud of still. It's like, for me, it's still one of the best things I did. It was meant to be for mature readership. Marvel got cold feet and suddenly at the last minute said, oh, actually we're going to make it for everybody, so I had to do some doctoring here and there. There was a few nudes and stuff around that we had to take out. But still, looking at that, it was the first time that I was working with a writer, an accomplished writer, that was very generous in his vision and in his sharing his creative collaboration process. It's one of those books that people who remember it very fondly. It was also kind of probably the first time that I realised a story, I didn't have to be tied into one style if the story was shifting. So one of the characters is struggling with massive issues, mental issues. And that really got reflected in the art, you know. And then there's other stuff later on with Mr. Terminaeus, who's this great, massively underused character. They should definitely bring him back at Marvel. He actually kind of looks like Grant Morrison, actually.
Actually, I was going to ask you about switching over to DC. Like, what you over to DC in the first place?
I was starting to have a bit of a comeback. It was like Man-Thing went on to spawn the Dark Ages, but it came to an abrupt end for reasons I still don't know. And that was a bit of a rough time because it just stopped, and I just couldn't get any work for that's. So then you, like I say, you know, that's where you have to be like really creative and really dig, and that's when we created our own publishing company. People start saying, well, he's now an editor and a publisher, and he's doing work for it. So you know, people start to see you in a whole different light. Ben Abernethy got in touch about The Possessed, and that was Jeff Johns, and we did that 6-issue series, which was Wildstorm, but that was just about to be taken into. It might have just been pulled into DC at that point. And that led to a whole bunch of little gigs for DC over the time. I was thinking, I've got to do a big book. I've got to do like a mainstream book to get seen again. And that's the sort of advice I was getting. It's like, you need to get yourself on a big mainstream book. So when Gears of War came, I was like, damn it, I was hoping for something. And my wife looked at the characters and said, what are you, nuts? It looks like you designed them. You should absolutely do that book.
It totally does, actually. Yeah.
Right? And she said, it's just Conan with guns. I'm like, it is Conan with guns. Okay, yeah, I should definitely do this book. And that's one of the, I see that as like a precursor to Wonder Woman. Because when I look at that, it's very, that felt like the first time I really nailed a style that's uniquely me. You know, it's got, you can see all the influences, but it's like, you can also see that's just me. You know? And it's very consistent, and I worked really, really hard at it. When the Wonder Woman gig turned up a few years later, that just seemed like the straight approach, you know, the same sort of attention to detail, concentrate on the storytelling first, you know, these hard-won lessons that you learn over your lifetime, which is like, you know, that you don't get when you're young and your talent is art. Often you want to show off as an artist, or try and do something that's artistically it's going to kind of blow people's minds if you can. And actually, that's not the best approach to a comic, because the storytelling's more important than the art. And that's a funny one it's a funny pill to swallow. You know, to me, then, you know, you start thinking about the storytelling, you think about the world building, and then there's, you know, if you can create a world that's as much a character as the characters, then there's stuff that you buy without even realizing you're buying into it, you know, and then you're bringing the audience to a place where that, you know, you hope they want to come back to this place, and you also secretly hope that if you disappear off the book, they're looking at the next one, they go, oh man, this is not, I wanted to be in that place and it's not the same place. You know? And that they'll hopefully follow you to whatever the next project is. Yeah.